Hello and welcome to Lyrical Definition, a channel devoted to the discussion of all things lyrics. I take the approach of unravelling the story within the song. It's not just about the melody, but what the artist is trying to convey beneath the beat. So thanks for joining me. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing the lyrics of the most recent release by the multi-talented Sia. If there's one thing the music industry loves more than a fame-hungry, selfie-taking, cocaine-sniffing, head-shaving celeb, it's an enigma. For some reason, Hollywood is like a moth to a flame for talent that wants to exist where it should do, on the charts, rightly so, but doesn't seem to want to show its face. And why should it? Sia is a prime argument for this. Her stunningly powerful voice is featured on many of the top-selling songs of late, working with David Guetta, Flo Rida, and even featuring on the Twilight soundtrack. She's also written for some serious heavyweight artists like Madonna, Rihanna, and most recently with Jennifer Lopez on her album AKA. She also wrote one of my personal favourite songs, Beyoncé's Pretty Hurts. Her talent's everywhere, and therefore already established. But Sia is most definitely an enigma. A quick wiki search pulls up facts such as her full name, Sia Kate Isabel Furler, age 38, parents both in rock bands, born and raised in Melbourne, Australia. But none of that really tells you anything about her. For I believe the true Sia, who she really is, resides in her lyrics. And most revealing to date has to be the soon summer hit, Chandelier. Sia is not one to write timid lyrics. The song starts with a bold sentence, "Pretty girls don't get hurt." What does she mean by this? Is she alluding to beauty being protective for women when it comes to life and love? What protection can pretty offer anyway? It isn't actually a tangible thing, like armour perhaps, but Sia seems to be suggesting so. The line, "can't feel anything," certainly says that there is some need for protection. However, the validity of that statement is tested from her own question, when will I learn? Because even she is unsure of how to protect herself against her own maladaptive behaviour. The narrator is speaking to herself, and the audience are party to that conversation when we hear this question. I'll use Sia and the narrator interchangeably, because I feel that they're one and the same, and that Sia is using the narrator here as a tool to project her own inner feelings. And what's interesting is that those feelings are being pushed down, the repetition mimicking the act of pushing, and we get a sense of how deep and how far she wants to escape from her fears. These are fears of being hurt that we obviously hear about in the first line, and now she's acting in a way to try and numb herself from feeling them. Coming back to this idea of maladaptive behaviour, even Sia's own assessment has somewhat negative connotations when you really pick it apart. "I'm the one for a good time call" is a comment on how she feels others perceive her, the party animal, the one you can call at whatever time. For me, this sentence even seems a little salacious. Is Sia offering herself out to people because maybe that's all she feels she has to offer? I don't know. She considers these people reaching out to love her, but again, perhaps that's because she's running away from her own feelings. So she substitutes them with the artificial and superficial love of going out company. But it's like craving meat and giving yourself corn. You're never going to feel satisfied or really full. I think she knows this, because the second I feel the love almost feels like a stumble to me. A fault in her strategy to avoid her fears of abandonment, and a crack in her confidence of the life she's built up, being able to substitute for meaningful relationships. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, drink marks the passage of time and the cycle of maladaptive behaviour she fills her life with. The counting of the drinks makes the audience imagine those shot glasses touching her lips. I certainly think so. The plosive drink has a harsh ending, with the K sound almost like the clink of the glass on the bar when she's done. The fact she continues saying this over and over again shows the monotony of her life, but also the extent of her avoidance of facing her fears. Sia herself has admitted to suffering from depression and alcoholism. It's likely to some extent that this song is a reflection of that numbness of depression, and the contrast of drinking behaviour to try and cope with the lack of feelings. Thrown back till I lose count. This is the journey she undertakes from drinking those shots in the previous section to the point where she catches a buzz, is under the forgetting influence of the alcohol, and can further escape into her numbness. When I think of a chandelier, I imagine those big stately homes, Pride and Prejudice style with their ballrooms and giant centerpieces. They connote luxury to me, sparkling lights and a celebration of life even. Interestingly, the fact that they're the centre of a room makes me wonder if Sia's crying out for help and trying to get some attention. But we'll discuss more on that later. Swinging from the chandelier has that freedom from social constraint element that I think she's trying to capture. But actually, it's probably more about the motion. The comparison to a bird confirms this for me. She wants to take flight out of the world she's created. She isn't convinced by it. So the bravado is living like tomorrow doesn't exist because she doesn't have to face all her insecurities head on. Also, at the height of a chandelier, she's attempting to rise above the stresses of the world that can often bring you down, physically separating herself from it, thinking that's going to make it better, but somehow it doesn't. And we'll see in the chorus, partying your life away doesn't solve the issues underneath, those undercurrents of pain and shame, especially when you become sober. Holding on for dear life is in stark contrast to the carefree attitude she had previously. It takes a turn to being threatening for her, with her life actually in danger and the need to hold on tight in case she falls. I'd imagine she has to hold on really tight to the facade that she's created that masks her fears, and feels like if she were to let go, she'd probably fall under the weight of them. Before, she was living like tomorrow never existed, happy to do so, and now she suddenly shifts to just holding on for tonight. That change in timeline is so powerful. Like, we feel that her survival is actually quite limited. Again, the idea of Sia using the chandelier to get attention for her troubles becomes really obvious when she actually says, "Help me." This is her directly admitting to her pain, something that she hasn't done previously. It's always been roundabout with the questions to herself. And it's something that she might not be able to do herself, why she has to ask. Hence her closing the eyes from the situation. But there can be no doubt Sia needs to be saved. Sia employs time as a powerful tool to describe her suffering. There's this idea of time losing meaning through drinking, then the comparison between tomorrow and tonight, which conveys her convicted state. Here, she uses the sun coming up to really shine light, excuse the pun, on the aftermath of her maladaptive behaviour. And even she has to admit she's a mess because of it. Again, her instinct is to run, frustratedly, the same way as in the first verse, when the self-doubt creeps in and she wants to push it down. This is clearly a Sia who cannot handle her feelings. She's terrified of letting herself know them. I think of the last line like I do the hangover upchuck. Yeah, I went there. That moment the next morning when your body is done housing the alcohol and dodgy kebabs and you feel it rise up within you. Sia describes her shame this way, like she's about to vomit it out. It's interesting then that this line is also before the bridge and chorus, because to me it's like she's repeating her cycle all over again. That cycle being feel pain, drink, feel numb, next morning feel the pain again, drink, feel numb, again, repeat. And yet she voices the same confessions that she does need help in the chorus. Is she trying to send out the message that she's so far entrenched in this type of behaviour that she can't get out of it on her own accord? In which case, I'm not really liking that. There's a sense here of learned helplessness, which is a long-standing psychological theory actually used to explain depression. We try, perhaps she tried to feel, we get knocked down, which obviously has happened to her. And because we then associate our actions with a failure to achieve our goals, we simply don't try again. And eventually that learned helplessness spreads so that it overarches our behaviour responses to most situations. This is a defeatist attitude. I'm not one for defeatist attitudes in life, I have to admit. I want some resolution with the song and I don't get it. But then I guess that's Sia being realistic and ultimately honest about herself. She knows she has a problem. It's not something you can solve with a magic bullet or even a million people helping you out. It's a constant struggle, which depression is. You're never cured. You live with it day in, day out, and you'll revert back to your maladaptive behaviour. That's inevitable. And that thought's kind of scary. So yeah, I slip into reading this song like it's a party anthem because it's easier and it makes me feel less uncomfortable. I think Sia wants you to feel that uncomfortableness, so that you're forced to think about these things. But overall, I genuinely think that this represents a new start for Sia, a first step on the road to healing. And that brings us to the end of my episode. I hope you've enjoyed the content and it's answered some of the questions you might have had regarding Sia's lyrics, or maybe even created some new questions. This is why I think it's important to delve deeper into lyrics. It's not about being able to hum them while you're stuck on a train, but feeling like you've understood the artist's story for those 4 minutes. And of course, these are just my opinions, so feel free to comment with your own interpretations. I'd love to get a discussion going and hear what you think. Also, for more music discussions, follow me on Twitter, link to which is in the description. Thanks for listening.